right there just to make sure that they're working again. And so let's introduce our first player in this best of 3 from the Super Tournament qualifiers. He is Alpha X's own ZOUN. And his opponent up here in the top as the Blue Terran, he is BYUN. So this is going to be a very exciting game. I can feel it in my bones. The big thing to note is that this actually was not cast. This is from the recent Super Tournament qualifiers. I believe Group B is where these guys duked it out. And already we see ZOUN knows BYUN's tricks, so he's going to be scouting quite thoroughly on this map, just making sure that he is super safe against what this guy can go up against him. So one of the big things about BYUN is he is a pretty big proponent of the early game, the mid game, and sometimes sacrificing the late game a little bit to kind of get those very fast kills, those very deadly pushes, trying to hit his spots essentially where he can do the most amount of damage. So we'll have to see how long can this game really go on for, as ZOUN, once he starts getting into the later stages of everything, he just becomes so solid. He's a very thorough player, all things considered. Already, you know, BYUN just going to play it super standard. He's got that Reaper out for a little bit of scouting information. And honestly, now that I see ZOUN's probe just kind of hiding up there in the top, that's a really big indicator that we're going to be seeing some craziness. And actually, never mind. He's actually going to send it straight in as the Reaper going to be coming in and getting a reveal. As the probe's going to be a little bit annoying. Now ZOUN already going to be going up to that Stargate play to start things off. And this is one of those things that can really not necessarily backfire on you as a Protoss player, but it can kind of slow down any sort of transition. You really don't want to be staying on the Stargate for too long unless you're going to go absolutely ham, start pumping out a ton of Void Rays or a ton of Phoenix, and kind of get a small army on the ground to support it. Otherwise, you'll just see them either go up to 4 or 5, and 4 or 5 Phoenix, and then just kind of transition from there into the Twilight Robo facility. Now BYUN, he's going for a bit of an interesting look right now, as we do see that he has what looks to be a pretty interesting combo for his drop. On top of this, the Oracle does actually shave off a lot of its energy to chase down this Reaper, and we do see that 3 Adept Oracle timing coming on in, trying to do as much damage as he can.
Glorious combat is upon us.
Now BYUN, not really in a ton of trouble here. He's definitely going to lose some SCVs as they will get one-shot by the Adepts. But overall, he should be able to kind of stabilize with another reinforcement of Marines. And again, the Oracle doesn't have a ton of energy on him, so it's not going to really be too useful right now. We do see that 3 Hellions going to be coming in. You do need to line up those shots perfectly, just because there is that shield battery on the way, but already getting massive amounts of damage and forcing the defensive Warpins before picking up and getting on out of there. Oracle going to try and get some counter damage done, but there is enough back here to defend. Currently taking a look at it, relatively even, with 6 workers going down for BYUN and another 8 for ZOUN. Now remember, we aren't going to actually have the game heart features on this one, just because this was cast in kind of a closed studio audience, even though there was no audience. I'd assume that they probably put up like paper mache audience members, which a lot of sports teams have been doing recently as well. So, you know, if they started cheering, it probably would be a little bit disheartening. The game heart features, like seeing the kills on the workers, just seeing a bunch of them go down. The upgrade tab over here not going to be showing up. Just that kind of stuff. Small things that you really take for granted watching the big premier tournaments. Now BYUN going to find a nice position to kind of engage into. Keeps that Cyclone alive for a little bit longer, but ZOUN going to be able to take a resounding victory right now, as the Vikings going to have to land a little bit of fancy micro, but with that medevac down, actually ZOUN going to be backing off here. What a crazy engagement. Now keep in mind with this that there is blink in play, but there's no robo facility and there's no real transition, so it's just pure gateway units at this time. Not the best location to be in. Honestly, at this point, you do want to kind of start getting some of that AoE, a little bit of that splash damage as your opponent goes up to the +1 attack, as well as stim. But, I mean, ZOUN is still in a pretty comfortable position, as BYUN only just now getting his third command center down, and we do see that gateway explosion. Now the question is he going to be in position? All of his units are actually at the third base, so this is a perfect location and time for BYUN to jump in. Oh man, this is actually going to force ZOUN into a pretty hefty loss here, as he's going to probably lose both of these pylons, but no. BYUN goes straight for the mineral line. Going to pick off a couple more workers. He's going to take down the Zealots that were warped in to defend, and from here, BYUN can essentially just get out of here. Although he is going to stay and fight. Only enough, these Marauders getting massive amounts of damage before they do go down. So relatively equal trades there, as BYUN moving in for another attack on the third base. Now that was actually a Taste Toastus pylon, as he has two of them powering up. So ZOUN, he does have the robo facility somewhere on the map, but it looks like right now he's kind of just focusing on building up his gateway army. Okay, he does have +1 attack, so that he's got that going for him as well. And now, I'm kind of interested that he's not really throwing down any additional tech or any additional units right now. Just getting that Oracle and the Warp Prism. That's not really the biggest composition that you can go for. I mean, these Zealots, they do have charge, but they're not really in a high enough number to kind of take these engagements. Small Zealot run by going to be good for him right there, as we see ZOUN kind of back off. He knows that he can't really take this. He knows that he really can't take this position. So basically, he's just going to go back and power up with that facility. Yeah, everything is pretty much standard right here. As BYUN moves out, he does have a pretty scary army composition to deal with. So ZOUN kind of just trying to buy himself a little bit of time. He's got these small run-bys here and there, as well as just starting to power up with those Colossus. He's got +2 on the way as well. But now it's really difficult to kind of engage into this. And blinks forward to keep those Widow Mines from getting connections. And BYUN a little bit on the retreat, but he's not done just yet. Shield battery is popped, but now BYUN can actually just kind of rotate away from that. A little bit out of range was ZOUN. But I mean, he's doing a decent job of kind of holding on to this position. He just needs to do a little bit more work, get a couple more pickoffs before this becomes a little bit overwhelming as BYUN is bringing his reinforcements across the map. Colossus is popped and it did not have that shield battery to save it, so BYUN still getting some massive work done right now as ZOUN struggling to kind of keep up. And this is what BYUN will do to you. Basically, once he starts to smell that blood in the water, once he starts these kind of push, he's always aggressive. He never really stops. You can kind of see that in the blue parade push across the map. And that can be his biggest strength, but sometimes his biggest weakness, especially if ZOUN were to get a decent engagement right now and kind of pick off the army relatively quickly, because then it means BYUN is going to have to retreat, and once his forward momentum is done, then that's where he really starts to stumble in these series. Gonna go straight for the Nexus, but the Colossus a little bit exposed there. BYUN known for going for those snipes. Not going to get it this time. And as the reinforcements coming up from behind, that Colossus just nowhere to go. But his friend is already here, so the laser draft's going to be enough to push this back. And as I say that, BYUN's still going to be pushing a little bit further forward before he ends this. Yeah, he ends the attack, and now it's going to be heading back to his third. So BYUN already starting the transition. He's got the Ghosts for the EMPs and the Vikings to deal with the Colossus count. I don't see ZOUN really making any more Colossus at this time. So I'm really struggling to see what his next move is. I don't think he does. Yeah, he doesn't still have the Twilight Council, but he's still going to be moving in here, trying to get something done. The Marauder count, though, soaking up all of the hits, and even there, going to get another nice pick-off. So with this ZOUN overextending just a little bit, he does have a forward reinforcement position, but there's no gateway, so that is some slow warp-ins. And now, although he is able to press this position, there's enough in the back for BYUN to really hold on for a much longer time. And there you have it. BYUN forces this back once again. ZOUN on the retreat. ZOUN, though, not completely done yet. Just yet, he's still getting those transitions and trying to force his way through. But yeah, unfortunately, he just still doesn't really have enough in order to break BYUN. It's unfortunate, though, because BYUN is now at that kind of 4 base economy. He just gets more powerful as time goes on. From this position, I know I said sometimes he does sacrifice that late game, but it does not seem to be the case right now, as he does have the perfect army composition to kind of deal with the opposing forces of ZOUN. And again, ZOUN, he's got the High Templar, but he doesn't have Storm yet. He doesn't really have any more consistent AoE other than a couple of Colossus, which, by the way, are going to lose their kind of status as untouchable as that Viking count rises. More Prism going to be coming in. That's an instant takedown. A little bit of a Zealot run by, and I'm really liking this. Sometimes you'll see Protoss players overextend a little bit with these run bys. They'll kind of warp in 15 to 16 Zealots and try and get massive amounts of damage done. But what ZOUN's doing is he's kind of trickling in, getting a few kills with the Zealots, and that still leaves him enough units back at home to defend the BYUN counter pressure. So fantastic play from both sides so far. EMP is going to blanket a lot of this army, but the Archons haven't been hit just yet. There you go. Now big engagement coming down here as the Archons in the front, soaking up as much damage as they possibly can, but BYUN not going to have any of that as the Colossus start to fall. The stream of blue has started once again. ZOUN doesn't really need to defend this location, luckily enough for him. He's still on equal bases. But again, BYUN up over 50 supply. Taking a look at that army. It's 50 army that you're not really going to have an easy time taking care of. You need these big, beefy Archons in the front, Colossus in the back. Maybe a couple of nice disruptor drops, but GG is called instead. So BYUN goes up in game number 1 for this series. Now from there we are going to be hopping into Death Aura for game number 2. He may be down, but he's definitely not out. Let's introduce these players. Spawning in the bottom position. If a tree falls in the forest, it makes one of him. He is ZOUN. And his opponent at the top, he is teamless, but he is not, he is fearless as well. He is BYUN. These are never before seen replays from the Super Tournament qualifiers in Maniac. So basically nobody was covering this event. So we have graciously been given the replays in order to let you guys know that these players are awesome. Now we do have this kind of early probe. That's kind of to be expected. You always want to send out one probe to kind of be a nuisance on the other side. It's not really meant to get too much damage done. It's just kind of, hey, I'm in this game too. Oh yes, I think all of the qualifiers just weren't cast at all. I don't know the exact reason behind it, but yeah, figured we'd bring at least some of the better games to them. Now BYUN gonna do something a little bit unusual, not for him however. He's skipping the Reaper once again, just to kind of save up that gas, bank it up for the factory a little bit quicker. This allows him to kind of be a bit more aggressive out on the map, because he does like to go for those Hellions these days and kind of push the issue early on. Waiting to see that factory go down. Probably just needs a little bit more gas to make it happen. Yeah, on the other side of things, ZOUN playing it pretty standard to start things off. He doesn't really, you know, he doesn't really want to show his hand too early, too soon. But we should be seeing what he's going to throw down here relatively soon. I am loving this from BYUN. This is mostly a TVZ build, but getting that third CC, a little bit risky, but at the same time, BYUN is known for risky behavior sometimes. And actually, I'm loving this. He's going to cement a 2-1-1 as well. So he's going to start up that stim, and we should be seeing some medevacs as well. but not for the first push. He likes to build up to, say, about 7 to 8 Marines and just kind of send them across, see what they can get done. A lot of the time, your opponent's not really expecting it, so they're not really in position to deal with it. And I mean, versus Phoenix, could actually be fantastic amounts of damage for him. So we really should be seeing that trigger be pulled a little bit closer to Stim finishing up. ZOUN still has no idea about this, by the way. As you can see, he hasn't really been in the opponent's base for a little bit of time. But he is building up that Phoenix count. I think we will see him stop around 5 to 6. Usually is kind of the magic number where you begin your transition. And he already has that robo facility up. That's good to go. Maybe Colossus. Phoenix Colossus is a very scary kind of build to deal with, especially when you're very heavy on the Marine count early on. Because it forces that transition into Marauders. And once Marauders are there, you don't really have enough to fight in the sky anymore. So the power of getting that third CC really being shown here, as he's been able to saturate his natural much quicker and already take his third base, as ZOUN's is almost complete as well. So he stays relatively equal, and now BYUN sees that it's a bunch of Phoenix, and that's kind of a moment where he can decide to pull the trigger. ZOUN, though, has seen how many Marines there are, so he's a little bit skeptical. Revealing Stim as well. Gotta be careful until those first medevacs pop out. But already 3 workers going down. That's some decent lifts. And I mean, to be honest, I was thinking that BYUN was going to attack a lot sooner. But now, with the addition of the siege tank in the back, this is where the push truly starts to show its power. Not a lot of Marauders in the front, but still, taking a look at that army supply lead, he's up over 20. Needs to keep those medevacs alive, but fighting into these choke points is a very risky business, as you do have the sentries, although ZOUN gonna forfeit the high ground, actually, as we see the Phoenix start to get some pickoffs on there, but BYUN gonna be forced back while that Colossus rains hellfire upon him. Okay, so you know, BYUN playing it very cautiously. He doesn't really want to lose these units early on, because what that will essentially allow ZOUN to do is go on a very committed counterattack without fear of reprisal. But I still do like how BYUN is kind of consolidating into a little bit of a double-pronged, it looks like. You'll see what he can get done on multiple fronts while there's not that many Protoss units to deal with. Kind of just rotating around now. on both sides. He wants to find that angle. He does get the observer that was tailing his army for the longest time. Bit of an interesting position to siege up there. I'm assuming that he thought that ZOUN had enough to kind of dive on top of him. But right now, ZOUN is really just quite content to stay on this 4 base and kind of just stay more defensively. There's no real point on him being out on the map and risk losing a fight very convincingly here. I gotta say, I'm very impressed by BYUN's non-committal right now, as usually he's the one that's kind of gung-ho in order to get in and do that damage. So being patient as his army consolidates is very interesting to see. There we go, small run by, gonna be heading out as well. Outside of sensor turret range, so they will not be scouted. Got completely maxed out. His army is ready to strike now. The Disruptor gonna get a decent connection, a couple of units going down right there, but really what this will allow him to do is buy time, as BYUN won't be able to engage into it as that Disruptor count moves forward. But right now, ZOUN has to pick his moment wisely. You see one big Zealot warp in, going to be coming onto the reinforcements, but ZOUN, now supply blocked by losing those pylons, is in a risky position. Nice hits right now on those Disruptors, just kind of whittling BYUN down. And we actually do have a lot of ZOUN's units prepared to kind of get rid of the reinforcements in the back, but now ZOUN has recognized that he has enough to strike a massive Disruptor ball, going to take out a good chunk of BYUN's army, and that is going to force him back. ZOUN taking an overwhelming engagement right there. He's on the attack, but he has to be careful not to overextend, as BYUN still has quite a bit back at home. So far, it looks like ZOUN really just kind of rotating around, looking for an opening. Not really going to find it too much, as these bases are a bit easier to defend once you kind of siege up and get in position. Plus, those EMPs certainly not going to hurt. Disruptor's just going to make sure that he's not being followed. They are left behind, however, so there is a potential for them to be used very aggressively. And you know what? They're going to be sneaking up on the army in the back. Recall being used, and they're actually just going to go home. Aww. That would have been absolutely fantastic to see him get a reach around on the army. Okay, so he's starting but to whittle down that Viking count. BYUN, once again, just kind of rotating around. And here we go. BYUN going to try and pull the trigger here. The Archons actually going to start getting taken down. They don't really have that much shield left after the EMP. There's enough Disruptors to help out, but a siege tank line is going to break through the Colossus up here, and this is where ZOUN starts to have to make some harsh decisions on where to divide his army up. Make no mistake, he's more than likely going to lose that Nexus. He doesn't really have enough to defend both sides. And there it indeed goes down. Unfortunately for him right now, he did reveal that he has the Dark Templar, so one good snipe, one good EMP, going to reveal a good majority of them. But now ZOUN is going to be moving out once again. Disruptor not going to be able to get that shot off either. And I mean, BYUN not really worrying about these Disruptor balls. He's kind of just baiting them out before re-engaging, as his second prong attack going to be moving over here towards the fourth. Just fantastic amounts of damage overall. Unfortunately, leaving those Disruptors to fend for themselves as well. Good splits, going to keep those keep those shots a little bit on the low side, but I mean, BYUN's certainly not done yet. He's got a small drop in the main base, so he is pretty much everywhere here. The DT's going to get taken down as well. Just action all over the place. Here we see the migration of the probes. Such majestic creatures. So again, we see BYUN up over 40 supply almost. He's got that transition going, enough ghosts for the EMPs. He also has quite a bit, but oh my goodness, that supply just plummeting a bit as we see the Disruptors getting those amazing connections. Difficult position to retreat from for BYUN. You know, one of these days, I'm really just expecting to see a Protoss player accidentally blink on top of a Disruptor ball. I haven't seen it yet, but it's bound to happen eventually. If ZOUN wins this, it's going to be off the back of some truly disgusting Disruptor hits, as now they're equal in supply once again. And ZOUN going to go on the attack while buffeting BYUN's attack on the bottom. Now, for the longest time, ZOUN has been on that +3 attack. He's just now adding his armor upgrades, so he's going to be able to take the fights a little bit easier for himself. But I'm loving this. It's kind of the 1-2 punch. He's got a good heap of units over here and another secondary defense structure where he's now going to be able to dive on top of this army from both sides if BYUN is not careful. Who's going to make their way through. And, you know, BYUN will be able to push this back a bit. The Liberators as well going to make this a very difficult position to engage into. But look at this. ZOUN just decides to go around. Full concave is going to force BYUN on the retreat. The Liberators going to get a couple more pot shots off before they get destroyed. And I mean, from here, ZOUN takes a resounding army supply lead. He's going to be able to start pushing his way forward and maybe take out a couple of bases. All things said and done, as those DTs going to try and get some work. How many probes and SCVs have been killed so far? Quite a bit, and that number is starting to rise as these DTs get some work in. BYUN trying to engage in here, but those Disruptors making it so difficult to fight uphill. And now his economy is starting to crumble a bit. If we take a look at that income, resoundingly in ZOUN's favor, the mules being the one thing keeping him alive. So now BYUN kind of struggling to replace some of those gas units, like the medevacs, like the Marauders. He really does need a lot more with this army. But now it comes to the point where ZOUN can essentially shut down some of the mining, as BYUN needs to use a good majority of his army to defend. But now we're in a sort of base race situation right now, as ZOUN going to be quickly taking out the 5th base once again, and BYUN going to dive right on top of the production here, getting rid of the disruptors and a lot of the tech. Up here, another base does fall, so ZOUN did start this a little bit cleaner on the base trade. But, you know, there is recall still available, so, you know, it's going to look a little bit better for him. You need to keep all of those orbitals alive just because there is nowhere near enough SCVs to help you recover from this attack. But yeah, both sides just really on a bit of a timer here. When is that recall going to be used? Looks like ZOUN a little bit, you know, a little bit hesitant to continue the attack. And BYUN has no such qualms here. Scan's going to go down, revealing those DTs, but as the orbitals start to fall, there's less and less scans to help deal with this. Now ZOUN has left a couple of units back at home to defend the Dark Shrine, doing wonders for him, forcing all those scans out, and one of the orbitals not able to land. Now ZOUN is still mining off this base up here. He's also got the expensive gas geysers, the kind that you find in a fancy restaurant that they charge you $5 for. And I don't know, it's just looking worse and worse for BYUN in this situation, but he still does have a very scary army to do, quite frankly, a lot of work in. He just has to get past the Colossus and the Disruptors on top. Yeah, I'm wondering how he's going to be able to break up this ramp right now. The Colossus just raining Hellfire on the Marauders. Disruptor getting a massive connection, and that is going to be it. ZOUN takes the game, and he is going to be moving on to game number 3 with an equal scoreboard. And I got to say, ZOUN is a rising star. All things, like, just overall, he just has an amazing build orders, and he's really going up against the best in the world and absolutely decimating them in some situations. And you know what? He is a very fun player to watch. So let's introduce him once again. Down here in the bottom position of Oxide, representing Alpha X, he is ZOUN. And up here in the top as the Blue Terran, he is BYUN. So the BYUN versus Solar game, we realized that we actually did do that replay cast, so we did change it up. We're going to have BYUN versus Stats instead, which will come after this series. BYUN and ZOUN did play twice in the qualifier. So we are going to be splitting up that series. But yeah, a lot of great replays still yet to come from 3 really amazing tournaments. Spoiler alert? Oh, yes. Because these are replays, the bracket command does have some spoilers. But not to worry, I'm not going to tell you how they go because, quite frankly, I don't know anything about these games. Now BYUN gonna get a decent scout off with this first SCV. Once again, just gonna be skipping the what do you call it? Marauder? No, Reaper. I'm forgetting which English word to use for each one, but yeah, he's gonna skip that Reaper, go straight up into the factory. Might be throwing down that reactor as well to get the Hellions up and running. And I mean, from here, ZOUN, he's got a lot of options open to him still. He's got the Stargate play, which he's been kind of favoring in the last couple, and he's actually said in an interview before that he really does prefer the Stargate play. Yes, but there's no real spoiler. The reason they played twice was because they were in the same group. So that's what happened there. Okay, so ZOUN going to be switching it up once again. He's got that Twilight Council on the way. And basically, Twilight Council, it can be aggressive, you know. We could see him throw down a couple of additional gateways, go straight up to Blink, try and kill BYUN early on, which, by the way, is an uphill battle in itself. But you also have the potential for some DTs. I don't think that's the route he's going to be going this time, though, just because, you know, DT's really a really big gamble for this early on in the series. Or this late in the series, rather. I forgot what game we were on. So there you have it. We do have Blink coming on down. We should be seeing the additional gateways being warped in soon. And I mean, there's a good potential for BYUN to kind of counter the damage really early with just some, a couple of Hellions in the way. The Adept going to be blocking off the rest of the wall, so kind of just got to wait for that to shade out, but no. ZOUN's in perfect position both times. First couple of Widow Mines do drop. One goes down. Actually loses it to the inside of the assimilator. Those don't actually get the kills. He is able to pull away this next one. So not that much damage so far. Only one probe being lost. And again, those Hellions just not able to get in. So really just excellent situational awareness from ZOUN. He's going to be able to go in here, but BYUN not done just yet. He's got that siege tank ready to go. He saw that Blink was on the way. And now he knows what he needs to do to kind of stay safe versus this. He did see the observer as well. There you go. He jumps up to a third base. It's going to start to move out, but BYUN is more than safe right now. He's not really worried. This is more of just a soft contain. Basically just trying to say that I'm here. If you move out, I'm going to get some pickoffs and then blink away. But yeah, back at home, ZOUN, just kind of powering up. Nothing too much else to say about this one so far. Yeah, those are the kind of pickoffs that ZOUN needs. He's just going to start kind of forcing that siege up if he can, slowing BYUN down because this is still a really overwhelming army right now. Good blink micro, going to get a couple of those Marines. And now I think what ZOUN should do is he should at least keep a couple of those back to stave off reinforcements, because as I've said before, BYUN loves these committed, just all-in parade pushes. Even though he does go up to the third base, adds on the additional racks, he just loves to go for them. So committed. Already it's going to work out for him too, as he gets a quick clean kill on that third. No, actually he's it's saved for just a little bit longer, but there's still so much here for BYUN. ZOUN not really able to commit into it to clean it up. And there you go. There is the snipe. So BYUN already got the transition into the Vikings. We should be seeing him throw down a Ghost Academy pretty soon as well, just anticipating that next kind of stage from ZOUN. But, you know, right now he feels safe and confident enough to push out once again. The Colossus is going to dive on top of this. Got to be careful because there are force fields in play. And I mean, you know, BYUN doesn't really have to push hard on this position. He just needs to kind of siege it up and let those siege tanks kind of stay in this position. Siege tanks actually unloaded right now, so they're not going to get too much done as the Blink Stalkers get right on top of them. But unfortunately for ZOUN, that was a very aggressive blink forward, and now the Colossus do not have any buffer for him. BYUN not going to push his luck, however, as that shield battery was popped. But now as that starts to fade, this is really BYUN's game to lose. As he takes down the War Prism, he can keep pushing this location. Yeah, there's just not much left here for ZOUN. Look at that production tab. Absolutely nothing being made by ZOUN right now. There you go, a couple of zealots, but it's just nowhere near enough. Once again, ZOUN gonna dive on this position, but as this army starts to fall, we should be seeing a tap out relatively soon. The last Colossus doing what he can, and another Warp in a Stalker trying to clean up. There's not a lot of healing left with the army. These medevacs starting to run a little bit dry, and that is some fantastic micro, but it falls with the Colossus inside. What